He was declared dead 17 years ago, vanished without wreckage, without a trace. But when an unmarked Phantom jet breaches the most secure airspace in America, NORAD scrambles to intercept, and the impossible happens. Major Nathaniel "Ghost" Hale is alive. And he's not just back. He's here for someone the world believes is long buried, his daughter. But what he uncovers is darker than death itself. Experiments, lies, a weaponized child who no longer remembers him. This isn't just a rescue, it's a reckoning. And what they buried is about to rise. The radar beeped once, then again. Then it let out a long, sharp tone that sent a chill through Lieutenant Colonel Jenna Rourke's spine. Unknown aircraft, heading 039, altitude 24,000 feet, speed Mach 1.2, no transponder, the young airman stammered from his console in the heart of the NORAD control center. Sir, ma'am, it just entered the red zone. The red zone. The phrase alone was enough to shift the entire control room into a cold, disciplined silence. Everyone in the command knew what that meant. The skies above that part of Nevada weren't just restricted. They were sealed off from the rest of the world like a steel vault. Even birds avoided that airspace. Jenna straightened. Get me eyes on that bogey now. Yes, ma'am. A map lit up across the main screen, a glowing grid of neon blue and red overlaid with satellite visuals. A dot appeared, then a faint outline. It was small, agile, fast. Is it military? Jenna asked. Negative. It's not squawking any identification codes. It's not one of ours. Her mouth tightened. That meant either a deeply lost civilian pilot or something worse, much worse. Scramble Viper Squadron. That's when the air shifted. The operators around her didn't just move. They sprang to life like coiled springs, shouting orders, flipping switches, relaying data. Within 4 minutes, 4 F-22 Raptors tore off the runway at Nellis Air Force Base and soared into the desert sky. Captain Darnell, Crash Jenkins, locked his helmet into place and checked his HUD. Target acquired. Coordinates locked. The unauthorized aircraft was still moving at high speed, cutting a clean path through the invisible wall of U.S. military airspace as if it owned the sky. Command, this is Viper 1. Visual confirmation pending. Target appears to be, he squinted, a vintage model. Possibly 1970s era single engine? What? Jenna's voice came crackling through his headset. Are you saying it's a retro aircraft? I'm not saying it, I'm seeing it. The jet ahead of them, sleek, sun-silvered, and slightly battered by time, was unlike anything Crash had seen in active flight since his days in flight school. It looked like a modified F-4 Phantom, a bird that had been retired from active duty decades ago, but somehow this one was flying like it had just rolled out of a hangar yesterday. Pilot isn't responding to hails, another voice chimed in. Viper 3, a woman with the call sign, Lynx. They circled closer, then the call sign lit up. It flashed faintly on the side of the jet, near the nose. Viper 1 saw it first. No way, he muttered. What is it? Jenna barked through the comms. There was a long pause. Then Darnell's voice, soft, stunned, cracked through. Ma'am, it's Ghost. His call sign is Ghost. The entire comms channel went quiet. Dead quiet. Back at the command center, Jenna stood still. Her fingers hovered above the console like they were frozen. That's not possible, she whispered. Ghost was more than a name. It was a legend. A phantom story told in quiet corners of Air Force bars. A name etched in plaques long since retired. Major Nathaniel "Ghost" Hale had gone down 17 years ago during a Black Ops flight in the Middle East. No wreckage was recovered, no body, no signals, nothing. He had vanished like smoke. The Pentagon declared him KIA. But here he was, alive, flying straight into the most secure patch of sky in America, and not answering a single call. Form up, don't engage, Crash ordered. his voice a controlled rasp as his jet eased closer to the silver relic cutting through the sky. The aircraft wasn't just flying, it was dancing. Every maneuver executed with a precision and grace that modern training simulations couldn't replicate. It banked hard left, rolled over the desert basin, and accelerated like it had a soul. Whoever was inside that cockpit knew the sky like a second skin. "Ghost, this is Viper 1, Crash said, switching to an open Hale frequency. "You are in restricted airspace. Acknowledge. Identify yourself. This is not a drill." No response. "Ghost, do you copy?" Still nothing. Inside the NORAD control center, the tension had grown heavy enough to suffocate. Jenna's eyes stayed locked on the screen. "Has he pinged any beacons? Any frequency traffic?" she asked, voice taut. "Negative, ma'am. Not even passive signals. It's like he's flying silent on purpose." Jenna narrowed her eyes. "Keep tracking. If he veers any closer to Site 9, bring him down." "Ma'am, with respect," Crash's voice crackled back over the comms, "we're talking about Ghost. The Ghost." "I know who he is, Captain," Jenna said sharply. "But whoever that is in the sky right now isn't following protocol, and this base isn't built for legends." In the cockpit of the aging fighter, the pilot adjusted a single dial and leaned forward. His gloved hands were steady. The interior of the jet was filled with switches that hummed with analog life. No HUD, no AI, no modern interface, only instinct. His eyes flicked to a photo taped to the dash, an old worn Polaroid of a girl in pigtails, laughing. Her name handwritten in ink that had long since faded. Maddie. He hadn't seen her in 17 years, hadn't seen anything but desert sky and shadows. This flight, this breach wasn't a mistake. It was a return. "He's veering northeast," Lynx called out. "Toward Site 9, Crash confirmed. "Command, permission to intercept?" Viper 2 asked. "No," Jenna said, too quickly. Then, more calmly, "Not yet. Wait until he crosses the last marker. Maybe he'll pull back." But he didn't. The Phantom cut across the invisible boundary like it didn't exist. Inside Site 9, red alarms flashed through the underground compound buried deep below the desert floor. Personnel scrambled. Fingers hovered over switches. It was a place built for secrets, for keeping what the world wasn't allowed to know. And the last person to fly into it without clearance had never come out. That was the point. Ghost didn't slow down, didn't hesitate. His course was deliberate, like he knew exactly where he was going. "He's descending," Crash shouted, "bringing it down. Altitude dropping fast, 30 seconds to touchdown." The Phantom's landing gear screamed as it deployed. Dust whipped into mini twisters across the forgotten runway as the jet's wheels hit the cracked pavement. The impact was hard, rough, metal against sand. It came to a dead stop. Then silence. No canopy opened, no movement. The three Raptors circled low overhead like birds of prey, unsure whether to strike or land. "Do not engage," Jenna ordered. "I want eyes on that pilot. Send in Ground Team Alpha, non-lethal only. If this is Ghost, I want to know why he came back." The ground team moved like a well-oiled machine, fanning out in tactical formation as the scorching wind licked at their Kevlar. The air was dry and humming with tension. The jet sat still, a monument to a forgotten era. Then, with a hiss of hydraulics, the canopy cracked open. A figure rose, helmet on, jumpsuit faded. He moved slowly, deliberately. When the lead soldier shouted, "Hands up! Out of the cockpit now!" the man didn't resist. He climbed down, planted his boots on the earth, lifted his arms. The soldier stepped closer, cautiously. "Name and rank." Silence. Then the man pulled off his helmet, and every weapon lowered. Every breath hitched. It was him. Major Nathaniel Hale. Ghost. Older, but unmistakable. He looked directly at the soldier, eyes sun-worn and hollow. "I need to speak to General Rourke," he said. "General who?" the soldier asked. Ghost's jaw tightened. Jenna Rourke. She was a captain when I left. The soldier looked at him like he was staring at a ghost in the flesh. I'll patch you through. In the control center, Jenna nearly dropped the coffee she'd been holding for the last 10 minutes without drinking. The soldier's voice came through her earpiece, shaky. "Ma'am, he's asking for you. He says it's Major Hale. He's alive." Jenna stood frozen, eyes wide. Her mind flashed to a day 17 years ago when she'd received the classified debrief that her mentor, her closest friend, had been lost in action. A file with a red stamp, MIA, presumed KIA. And now, she pressed the comms button with a trembling hand. "This is General Jenna Rourke. Identify yourself." A long pause, then the voice she had only ever heard in memory. "Hey, kid." Her knees nearly buckled. "Ghost?" she whispered. "I need to talk, face to face. It's about Maddie." Jenna's blood ran cold. Maddie was his daughter. But Maddie had died 15 years ago in a car crash, hadn't she? She stared at the screen, her heart pounding, the world shifting beneath her feet. "Bring him in," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Now." 2 black SUVs met the major on the tarmac. He was silent during the ride, flanked by 2 armed guards who treated him with a mix of awe and suspicion. They didn't speak, and neither did he. He just stared out the window as the desert rolled by, a blur of memory and heat. Inside the base, Jenna paced her office like a caged animal. The last time she had seen him, she was a wide-eyed second lieutenant, clumsily trying to pilot a simulator he made look effortless. He was the one who taught her how to trust her instincts in the sky. He was the one who told her that the most dangerous missions never came with parades or medals. Only silence. The door opened. Ghost stepped in. He looked older, gaunt. His once dark hair now streaked with gray, his face lined by years that couldn't be accounted for. But his eyes, they were still the same. Piercing, calculating, tired. Jenna didn't move, neither did he. Then, finally, she spoke. "You were declared dead. Do you know what kind of chaos you just triggered?" He gave a weak smile. "Yeah, I figured you'd say that." She wanted to yell at him, hug him, slap him, ask a million questions. But she said only one word. "Why?" Ghost lowered himself into the chair opposite her. He reached into his flight suit and pulled out a weathered flash drive. "Because I found something, and because she's alive." Jenna blinked. "Who?" He slid the drive across the table. "Maddie." Jenna stared at him, stunned. "That's not possible. She died in a car accident. There was a funeral? A casket. I was there." "No," he said quietly. "You were shown what they wanted you to see." Her voice rose. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Maddie didn't die in a crash. She was taken." Jenna sat down slowly, her mind spinning. "By who?" Ghost's eyes went hard. "The same people who buried me." He stood and walked to the window. "I was sent on a mission 17 years ago, one I wasn't supposed to return from. Only, I did. And I saw things. Things our government's not supposed to be doing. Not even in black sites." Jenna swallowed. "What things?" "Experiments. Biological manipulation. People, children, being tested, enhanced, weaponized." She stared at him, her skin crawling. "And you're saying Maddie was—" "They told me she died, but they kept her, for leverage, for what I knew, what I saw." Jenna couldn't believe what she was hearing, but the look in his eyes, it wasn't the look of a madman. It was grief, controlled rage, pain so deep it etched into bone. "Why now?" she asked. "Why come back after all these years?" "Because I found her, or at least where they moved her, and I can't get in alone." Jenna leaned back, processing. "Do you realize what you're asking me? If you're right, you're not just poking the bear, you're walking into a den of vipers wearing steak perfume." "I know," he said softly. "And you need my help." He nodded. She stared at the flash drive. Then she picked it up. "Tell me everything." The room was locked down, phones confiscated, cameras disabled. Ghost paced as he laid out the nightmare he'd lived through, how his mission in Syria wasn't about reconnaissance, it was about extraction. A scientist named Dr. Felix Marrow, who specialized in neurological weaponization. He'd found the facility, found the lab, found the children, then watched it all collapse in fire and silence when the U.S. government disavowed the mission. He'd survived by crawling through miles of desert, taken in by locals, moving from country to country, hunted by people who wore no flags. He'd only resurfaced when he intercepted a data packet bouncing through the dark web, an encrypted feed from Site Delta, a hidden base in the Rockies, and in it, a picture. His daughter, alive. No way they'd keep her alive unless she was useful to them, he said, which means she has something they need. Jenna rubbed her face. "So what's your plan? Waltz in and ask nicely?" He handed her a second device, a black module with a blinking green light. "This gets us access, but I need credentials, clearance. You're the only person I trust who has both." She looked at the device, then at him. And in that moment she wasn't a general. She was the scared young woman watching her mentor walk out of her life. "I'll do it," she said. "But if we're going to war," she added, "we'll need more than just ghosts." They began assembling the team that night, quietly. No calls to official channels, no requisitions, no records, just names, trusted names, people who owed Ghost, people who trusted Jenna. Pilots, tech specialists, one former CIA analyst who now fixed motorcycles out of a garage in El Paso, and a hacker so elusive she answered only to the handle Drift, and made contact using a series of coded postcards sent from obscure towns in Montana. Each came in quietly one by one, like whispers in a storm. The operation had no name. It didn't need one. It had a mission: infiltrate Site Delta, retrieve Maddie Hale, and burn the place down if necessary. 3 days later, under cover of a military training exercise, Jenna authorized the launch of a C-17 carrying a classified payload. The manifest listed spare jet engines. In reality, it was their team. Inside the plane, tension hummed like an electric charge. Ghost sat alone, staring at a grainy still of Maddie's face on a cracked tablet screen. Her eyes had changed, but it was her. There was no mistaking it. She looked older, stronger. But in her expression, there was something else, something he couldn't quite name. A sadness, or maybe resignation. Jenna approached and crouched beside him. "You okay?" He didn't look up. "I've had 17 years to prepare for this moment. I don't even know what I'll say to her." "She's your daughter," Jenna said. "You'll know." He turned, his face drawn. "You don't know what they've done to her." Neither did she. And that was the terrifying part. Site Delta wasn't marked on any maps. Hidden within the Colorado Rockies, it looked like a weather research station from above, just a few unassuming buildings tucked between peaks. But underground it sprawled for miles, concrete, steel, and secrets. The facility had only one entrance, and it was guarded by protocols designed to keep even military brass in the dark. That's where Drift came in. Perched in a van 3 miles from the facility, surrounded by monitors and wires, she chewed on the end of a lollipop and typed like a pianist possessed. "Firewalls old school," she muttered. They didn't expect anyone to hit this layer. Classic arrogance. Government never updates its deadliest secrets. Screens flickered. Numbers poured in like rain. And then access. "I've got you a 10-minute window before they know the sky's falling. After that, I suggest you be very far away." Inside the facility, red lights blinked as power rerouted. Doors opened, and Ghost walked back into the belly of the machine that tried to erase him. The corridor was cold. Everything smelled of antiseptic and metal. Jenna led the team, her stolen credentials opening each checkpoint like magic. They avoided the main security feeds. Drift looped old footage just long enough to mask their presence. At sub-level 4, the hallway split. Jenna turned left toward the data center. Ghost went right, toward Containment Wing 6, where they kept her. The guards were quiet. Too quiet. Something in the air felt wrong. Too still. He rounded the final corner and saw the door. It looked like a vault. His heartbeat thundered. He stepped up, slid the access module into the port. A light blinked green, and the door hissed open. Inside was a single room. A girl sat on the edge of a bed, her back to the door. Her hair was longer now, but he knew. He stepped inside. "Maddie?" She turned slowly, and he saw her, his daughter. But her eyes, they weren't just older, they were empty. "Who are you?" she asked. The word struck him like a blade. "It's me," he said, stepping forward, voice breaking. "It's Dad." She didn't move, didn't blink. "I don't have a father," she said quietly. And in the corner of the room, a camera blinked to life. Watching, recording. Ghost turned to run, but the door sealed shut behind him. The hiss of the door locking echoed through the sterile chamber like a gunshot. Ghost spun around, his heart hammering, his hands instinctively reaching for the sidearm he wasn't carrying. "Open the door!" he shouted at the empty hallway, pounding his fist against the reinforced steel. "She's not ready. She doesn't remember. Open the door!" There was no response. Only a soft hum from the ventilation system. Then Maddie's voice, cool and mechanical, cut through the tension like a knife. "You're a threat to the program." Ghost turned slowly. She was standing now. Her posture was rigid, perfect. Her eyes unblinking. She didn't recognize him, not even the slightest flicker of memory. "No," he said gently, stepping toward her. "I'm your father. Maddie, I used to read you bedtime stories about stars and dragons. You had a stuffed rabbit, Mr. Tumbles. You used to make me sing that awful lullaby from that cartoon." She tilted her head, watching him. "Who taught you those words?" she asked. Ghost felt like the ground beneath him had tilted. "What?" Maddie walked closer, her bare feet silent on the cold floor. "Those phrases are embedded recall triggers. They're used in our training modules. Where did you get them?" His throat went dry. "Oh my God," he whispered. "What did they do to you?" She blinked slowly, her voice now robotic. "Memories are liabilities. Personal connections compromise the mission." He took another step forward, his voice shaking. "Maddie, listen to me. I am not a mission. I'm your dad. They took you from me. I came all this way." She moved fast. 1 second she was standing still. The next she had him pinned against the wall with inhuman strength, her hand around his throat. Her face didn't change. No emotion, no fury, just surgical precision. "You are unauthorized," she said. "You have penetrated level 9 security. You will be neutralized." Ghost's fingers clawed at her wrist, choking. "Maddie, please." Then, for just a second, something flickered. Her grip loosened. The name, Maddie. It triggered something. Her hand trembled. She blinked rapidly, her expression faltering. I don't understand. Why do I know your face?" Ghost slid to the floor, gasping, clutching his neck. He looked up at her, coughing. Because they buried your real life. They filled your head with lies. But I'm still here. I'm real. You're not a weapon. You're my daughter." Maddie staggered back, as if the words hit her like a concussive blast. She pressed both palms against her temples. No, that's not possible. My earliest memory is the lab. The chair, the needles." Ghost stood, his voice soft. "That's not a memory. That's programming." Behind him, the door hissed again. Jenna burst in, weapon drawn. 2 of the team followed. "Maddie?" Jenna breathed, stunned. Maddie looked up, disoriented, cornered between her programming and something raw and human stirring beneath. Then the alarms went off. Red lights, klaxons. Drift's voice crackled through the comms. "They're on to you. Security is converging on your level. Squads from every corridor. You have less than 5 minutes before this place becomes a tomb." Jenna locked eyes with Ghost. "Can she walk?" He nodded, unsure. "She's conflicted." "Then we move, now." Maddie stood still, frozen. Ghost turned to her. "You trust me, right?" She didn't answer, but she followed. That was enough, for now. They raced through the corridors like shadows, hugging the walls as emergency lights painted everything in strobing crimson. Ghost held Maddie's hand, guiding her, though her steps were stiff, uncertain, like a puppet trying to remember how to walk. "North exit tunnel," Jenna barked into the comm. "Drift, we need a clean path." "I'm patching access now," came the reply. "But you've got heat on your 6, 2 squads, maybe more. You're going to have to punch through." Ghost tightened his grip on Maddie. "Stay close to me, no matter what." Ahead, 2 guards rounded the corner, raising rifles. Too fast to explain. Too close for negotiation. Jenna didn't hesitate. She dropped one with a burst to the chest, the other with a well-placed shot to the thigh. The silence that followed was brief and brutal. "Keep moving," she snapped. Maddie stared down at the fallen guards as she passed, her expression unreadable. Not afraid, not horrified, just watching, processing. "Why do I know how to kill them?" she asked quietly. Neither Ghost nor Jenna answered. There was no time. The tunnel system beneath Site Delta twisted like veins through the mountain. They passed sealed doors, biometric locks, steel-plated hatches labeled with codes Ghost didn't recognize. Some with symbols instead of numbers. Sectors marked Vitea, Obsidian, and one simply labeled Feh. Each one held secrets no one had the clearance to know, or the conscience to stomach. Drift's voice crackled again. "Opening final hatch. But you've got company. North Junction. Armed, armored, and itchy." Ghost turned to Jenna. "We make our stand here." She nodded grimly and took position behind a metal pillar. Maddie crouched beside Ghost. Her hands shook. He reached out, steadying her. "I've got you." A beat passed. Then she whispered, "No, I've got you." And she stood. As the first wave of guards entered the junction, Maddie stepped into the open. "Wait, Maddie!" Jenna hissed, but Ghost raised a hand. "Hold." Maddie raised her arms, but not in surrender. The guards hesitated. Then dropped their rifles, one by one, like puppets whose strings had been cut. Ghost watched, stunned, their eyes glazed over, motionless, frozen in place. Then one of them turned his rifle around and handed it to Maddie. Ghost felt cold. "Maddie, what did they do to you?" She didn't answer. Her voice was calm, detached. "They made me persuasive." They exited the tunnel 20 seconds later. A waiting transport hummed nearby, engines hot. Drift waved them over from the pilot's seat. "You've got incoming air traffic. Looks like they finally hit the red button." "Go," Jenna ordered. The transport lifted off, kicking dust and pebbles into the sky. Below, Site Delta shrank into the distance, the entire mountain sealed behind illusion and steel. Maddie sat in the back, staring out the window, silent. Ghost sat beside her, unsure if the girl beside him was still his daughter, or just the weapon they'd rebuilt her to be. But then, softly, she whispered, "Do you still have Mr. Tumbles?" Ghost turned, breath catching in his throat. She remembered, just one thread. But it was enough to hold on to. "Yes," he said. "I kept him all these years." She nodded, then laid her head on his shoulder. And for the first time in 17 years, Nathaniel Ghost Hale let himself believe that maybe not all of her had been lost. The transport soared above the Rockies, skimming the clouds as they fled the reach of Site Delta's defense net. Inside the cockpit, Drift's fingers danced across the controls, her eyes scanning 5 different monitors at once. "They launched a drone wing," she muttered. "Looks like a recon pattern, But if they figure out you've got the asset—" She didn't finish. Jenna slid into the co-pilot seat, scanning the terrain below. "How long until we're out of range?" 6 minutes if we stay low and quiet," Drift said, chewing on the end of her headset. "But they're smart. If they don't catch us in the sky, they'll wait until we land." In the rear cabin, Ghost didn't take his eyes off Maddie. She had gone quiet again, her expression distant. Her posture was rigid, almost statuesque, like her body was conserving energy for something darker. The kind of stillness that screamed of training, conditioning. He gently reached out, touching her shoulder. "You okay?" "I don't know," she whispered. Jenna turned from the cockpit, watching them both. "She's disassociating," she said quietly. "They conditioned her to separate thought from emotion. It's the only way they could push her beyond ethical limits." Maddie looked up. "You mean they taught me how to kill without crying?" Ghost flinched. "Yes," Jenna said softly. Maddie's lips barely moved. "Then they taught me well." Ghost leaned closer. "You are not what they made you." "But what if I am?" she asked, her eyes glistening. "What if everything I remember is a lie, and everything I don't remember is real?" He searched her face. "Then we build something new, together." She looked away. Outside the window, the clouds gave way to open desert. The rendezvous point, a nondescript fuel station with a hidden hangar beneath, was 10 miles ahead. They'd made it. But as Drift adjusted course, her screen lit up red. "Oh no." Jenna spun toward her. "What is it?" "They sent a shadow jet," Drift said, her voice rising. "Stealth class, no ID, no radar trace. They're tailing us hard." Ghost stood, bracing himself as the craft tilted. "What do they want?" Drift tapped her headset. "They want her." Maddie's eyes darkened. "Let them come." The stealth jet loomed behind them like a mechanical predator. No lights, no sound, just a ripple of shadow slicing through the clouds. It matched their movements, mirrored their altitude. Waiting, watching. "They're not firing," Jenna said, confused. "They don't want to destroy her," Ghost murmured. "They want to reacquire the asset. They still think she's theirs." A voice crackled through the radio, smooth and emotionless. Male. "Unidentified transport. You are harboring classified property. Prepare for boarding. Any resistance will result in termination of your craft and all aboard." Ghost grabbed the mic. "She's not property. She's a human being. A daughter." The voice replied unfazed. "The subject's biological history is irrelevant. She has been activated. She must return." Maddie stood behind him, her voice suddenly clear. "No," she said, reaching for the mic. "I'm not coming back." Static. Then silence. Then the stealth jet opened fire. 2 missiles streaked through the sky like silver fangs. Drift banked hard, jerking the transport into a dive. "Hold on to something." The missiles missed by inches, detonating behind them in twin blooms of flame. Ghost held Maddie as the transport shook violently. Jenna returned fire through the rear-mounted cannon, but the stealth jet ducked and vanished into cloud cover, like a ghost. "They're trying to disable the ship," Drift shouted. "Not kill us, just force us down." "We're landing," Jenna ordered. "Now. We can't win a dogfight in this thing." Drift pulled the transport into a sharp descent. Below, the desert blurred into a landing strip concealed by decades of wind and dust. As the wheels hit the sand and the craft slid to a halt, Ghost kicked open the hatch and led Maddie out, shielding her with his body. The stealth jet circled once, then turned and vanished. Like it had never been there, but everyone knew what that meant. This wasn't over. They had found her once. They would again. And next time, they wouldn't be asking. They moved underground. The hidden hangar beneath the old gas station was a relic of the Cold War. Concrete walls 6 feet thick. No windows. No way in or out without authorization. It had been used to store nuclear payloads once. Now it stored something far more dangerous. A girl who remembered how to kill before she remembered how to feel. Jenna paced as Drift set up a secure perimeter. Motion sensors, signal blockers, EMP suppressors. They had to assume every satellite in orbit was watching, every cell tower listening. Ghost sat beside Maddie on a steel cot. The dim light flickered above them, casting shadows across her face. He watched her carefully. She hadn't spoken since the landing. "Do you remember the lullaby?" he asked gently. She shook her head. He began humming anyway. Off-key, rough, but she didn't flinch. She just listened. "Why are you trying so hard?" she asked softly. "Because you're still in there," he said, "underneath whatever they did. I saw it. When you spared me, when you remembered Mr. Tumbles." "That wasn't me," she whispered. "That was programming glitching. A fragment of old data." "No," he said, firmer now. "It was you." She looked away. "I see flashes," she admitted after a long silence. "But they don't make sense. Faces, places, feelings, and then pain." Ghost nodded. "That's how they break you. They separate emotion from memory. So you remember what happened, but not how it made you feel." Maddie's voice trembled. "What if the feelings never come back?" "Then I'll remind you of every single one," he said. She looked at him again, and for a moment he saw her, the real her, the girl he'd held as a baby, the one who used to laugh so hard she'd snort milk through her nose, the one who called lightning sky dragons. Then the lights flickered. Drift's voice snapped through the intercom. "We've got movement. South Ridge fast. No ID. Could be recon drones. Could be worse." Jenna drew her sidearm. "Everyone to position." Ghost stood, shielding Maddie. "No," she said, rising beside him. "I need to see them." He hesitated. "Maddie, I need to know who they sent. I need to know how far they'll go." Jenna joined them at the door. "You sure?" Maddie nodded once. Outside, the desert wind howled like a warning. Then, silence. A single black SUV crested the ridge, unmarked, alone. It stopped 50 yards from the hangar. The driver stepped out. A man in a charcoal suit, silver tie, no insignia, no badge. His face was familiar. Ghost stepped back. "You?" The man smiled faintly. "Hello, Major Hale?" Maddie's eyes widened. "Director Sloan," she whispered. He inclined his head. "Good to see you again, Asset 017. Ghost stepped in front of her, fists clenched. "She's not your asset." Sloan's smile didn't waver. "She's everything we built her to be, and now you've interfered. You kidnapped her. You used her." "We saved her," Sloan said, "from a world that would have eaten her alive. We gave her purpose." "You erased her," Ghost snapped. "No," Sloan said calmly. "We elevated her." He turned to Maddie. "Come home, now, and no one gets hurt." She stared at him, then past him. Behind the SUV, more vehicles crested the ridge. Black, silent. Men in tactical gear stepped out. Dozens. Ghost turned to Jenna. "Can we hold them?" "No," she said. "Not like this." Maddie looked at Sloan one last time, then stepped forward. Ghost grabbed her arm. "Don't!" She looked into his eyes. "I'm not surrendering," and she stepped out into the open. The wind caught her hair as she walked, unarmed, unflinching. The soldiers raised their rifles. Sloan raised his hand to stop them. Maddie stopped 10 feet away. "You want me back?" she said, her voice calm. "You belong to us," Sloan said. "Then take me." Sloan smiled. And that's when Maddie lifted her hand, just one. And every rifle in the desert turned toward Sloan. The soldiers froze, confusion flashing across their faces as their own weapons pivoted against their will. Maddie's fingers barely twitched, her eyes locked onto Sloan like twin blades of ice. "You taught me well," she said. "But you never taught me what happens when the weapon wakes up." Sloan didn't move, didn't blink. His jaw clenched just slightly. "I see," he said. Maddie stepped closer. "You erased my name, my memories, my father. But you forgot something." She stopped just a breath away from him. The tension in the air was thick enough to choke. "What's that?" Sloane asked, voice low. Her eyes narrowed. You forgot that I was never yours. And with that, she dropped her hand. Instantly, the soldiers snapped out of their trance, but instead of firing, they looked around, confused, disoriented, unsure of their purpose, because in that instant, she hadn't just overridden their weapons. She'd overridden them. Mental conditioning, behavioral locks, command pathways, all of it broken. Sloane took a step back, face unreadable. Maddie, he began, his voice shifting, like he was trying something softer. You're destabilizing. You're not well. Let us help you. I'm not the one shaking, she said. Behind her, Ghost and Jenna watched as the impossible unfolded. Drift's voice crackled in their earpieces, stunned. Is she controlling them? Ghost whispered, No, she's freeing them. And then Sloane did something none of them expected. He smiled and whispered, Plan B. Before anyone could move, a sharp hiss echoed across the ridge. Canisters launched from the SUVs, arcing through the air. 1, 2, 3. They burst in midair, releasing clouds of pale blue gas. Maddie, get back, Ghost shouted, sprinting toward her. But she didn't move. The gas rolled across the ground like fog. Jenna pulled a mask over her face, shouting into comms. What is it? Bioagent? No, Drift replied, her voice shaken. It's neural suppression gas. It's for her. Ghost reached Maddie as the mist closed in. She dropped to her knees, hands gripping her head. Sloane walked toward them through the haze, calm as ever. You're powerful, he said. But you're still one of us, and you're still bound by protocol. She looked up at him, pain etched across her face. Not anymore. Sloane raised a small remote and pressed a button. Her body jolted violently, like a surge of electricity ripped through her veins. Maddie! Ghost screamed, catching her as she collapsed into his arms. Sloane stepped over them, gun drawn. I'm sorry it had to be this way, he said. But the apology never landed, because a shot rang out. Sloane stumbled backward, a hole in his shoulder. He turned, stunned, to see Jenna Rourke, pistol raised, eyes burning. Get away from my goddaughter, she said. And with that, Ghost hoisted Maddie in his arms, and they ran. Gunfire erupted around them as chaos tore through the desert. Jenna dropped behind an old dune buggy, firing in controlled bursts, forcing Sloane's men to scatter. The neural gas thickened, but the wind had begun to shift, sweeping the worst of it away from the hangar entrance. Ghost cradled Maddie, sprinting toward the open hatch as Drift waved them down from inside, eyes wide with horror. She needs a scrub now, Drift yelled. If that charge went off in her cortex, we've got minutes before she flatlines. Ghost didn't wait. He laid Maddie on the metal table inside the bunker, her eyes fluttering, breath shallow. Her lips moved, barely audible. Daddy? He gripped her hand tighter. I'm here, Maddie. Stay with me. I've got you. Drift slammed her laptop open, wires flying as she connected sensors to the base of Maddie's neck. The pulse is still active. It's burning out her neural implant. They're trying to remote wipe her. Shut it down, Ghost barked. I'm trying, Drift shouted back. You know how hard it is to beat a kill switch buried under 20 layers of quantum code? Jenna slid inside, kicking the hatch shut behind her, panting, bleeding from a graze along her temple. I bought us 90 seconds. Maybe. Outside, the thunder of boots signaled Sloane's men regrouping. Ghost hovered over Maddie, helpless, until her hand twitched. Then her eyes opened, wide and full of light. Drift's monitors went wild. Graphs spiked, frequencies scrambled. What the? Her readings just reversed. She's fighting the wipe. Maddie's voice was low and rough. They're in my head. Push them out, Ghost said, kneeling beside her. You can do it. I don't know how. Yes, you do, he said. Because you're not their creation. You're your mother's daughter, mine. You're Maddie Hale, and you're stronger than all of them. Tears streaked down her cheeks. I don't want to forget you again, she whispered. Then don't. Drift leaned in. Now, Maddie, focus on my voice. I'm routing your neural node through an external loop. If you can stabilize your mind for 20 seconds, I can copy everything they're trying to erase. Will that stop them? Ghost asked. Drift's lips tightened. No, but it'll give us a map of everything they did to her. Maddie gritted her teeth and let out a cry, half agony, half rage, as her body arched on the table. The room shook. Monitors flickered. The lights overhead exploded with a burst of white heat. Then everything went black. A heartbeat later, emergency lighting kicked in, and Maddie sat up, breathing hard, alive. "Holy hell," Drift muttered. "She just fried the kill switch," from the inside. Ghost grabbed her, pulling her into a tight embrace, his voice breaking. "You did it! You're here!" Jenna nodded, her face pale. "We're not out yet. But that was a war won." Outside, the silence after the storm settled, and somewhere across the desert Sloan was watching, his arm in a sling, eyes fixed on a screen showing Maddie's biometric scan, flickering now, corrupted. "She's evolving," he said to no one. A quiet voice responded from the shadows. A woman, cold, clinical. "She's waking up," he turned to her. "Then we initiate Phase 7. The woman nodded, and the screen went dark. 3 days later, the team lay low in a decommissioned radar station, buried in the Nevada desert, off-grid, shielded, forgotten by every government agency except those who weren't supposed to exist. They'd changed locations twice already, each time narrowly avoiding Black Ops trackers disguised as FEMA surveyors or Department of Energy trucks with too much antenna gear. Maddie spent most of her time asleep. Her body healed faster than any of them expected, but her mind, that was different. Drift had isolated fragments of corrupted memory, shattered pieces of her childhood, jumbled with fabricated missions and chemical triggers designed to suppress empathy. It was a minefield of trauma and truth. Ghost never left her side. He sat near her cot at all hours, sometimes holding her hand, sometimes just watching her breathe, as if afraid she might disappear if he looked away too long. Jenna and Drift worked in tandem, running simulations, decrypting data pulled from Maddie's overwritten core. What they found made Jenna physically sick. 17 other children, she whispered, scrolling through encrypted files with trembling fingers. All of them classified as successfully imprinted assets, ages 6 to 16, each one assigned a handler, each one disposable. Drift leaned back in her chair, exhausted. They weren't just building weapons. They were building ghosts, copies, versions of Maddie, each with a different tolerance level. Some broke, some vanished. Jenna pointed to a redacted name. "And this? Project Dawn?" Drift frowned. "It's buried deep, almost mythical. But from the data, whatever Dawn is, it's the reason they kept Maddie alive. Or the reason they'll never stop hunting her." That night, Ghost woke to find Maddie sitting outside on the concrete slab beneath the stars. She stared at the sky like it might answer the questions in her head. He stepped beside her quietly. "You used to count the stars," he said. She nodded. "I still do. I just don't know why." He sat down beside her, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. For a long while they said nothing. Then she asked, "Did I ever sing?" He smiled. "You couldn't stop? You used to sing to your stuffed rabbit, remember? You'd sing that song about the moon. What was it called?" She looked at him. "I remember. Catch a Falling Star." "And put it in your pocket," he finished. They sat there under the endless sky, the desert wind blowing soft and warm. And for the first time since he'd found her, Ghost saw something return to her eyes, a spark, a soul. But the peace didn't last. The attack came just before dawn, a low rumble in the earth, a hum too rhythmic to be nature. Jenna's voice came through the base intercom. "We've got incoming. Fast movers. No transponder codes. Sound the alarm." Ghost leapt to his feet, pulling Maddie with him. Outside, the sky lit up. blue fire streaking toward the radar dome from an unseen aircraft. They didn't even try stealth this time. "They're not trying to contain us," Jenna said, loading her rifle. "They're trying to erase us." Drift slammed her laptop shut, grabbing the external drive wired to Maddie's file. "We've got to move. If they get this data, it's over." A deafening blast rocked the structure, part of the east wall collapsing in a shower of concrete dust. Ghost shielded Maddie, pulling her through a side corridor. Drift and Jenna followed, weapons drawn. More explosions followed, closer now. Then a new sound. Footsteps, not dozens, hundreds. "They brought the Praetorians," Jenna said, voice grim. "I saw them in black files. Biomechs. Hybrid shock troops." Maddie stopped running. She turned, eyes narrowing. "No more running," she said. Ghost grabbed her arm. "You can't fight them all." But she pulled away. "I'm not going to." She stepped into the crumbling hallway, her hands glowing faintly now, light beneath the skin, like fire behind frosted glass. Ghost watched, stunned. "What are you—" Maddie raised both hands, and the world shook. The concrete rippled, metal screamed, air warped. And the first line of Praetorians, 12 feet tall, armored in obsidian alloy, stopped, then dropped, like puppets cut from their strings. Jenna stared in awe. She's overriding them. Every cybernetic implant, every neural core, she's rewriting them. Drift whispered, "No, not rewriting. She's erasing the code." The entire base trembled as more Praetorians entered and fell. One by one, a wave of silence spreading outward. Maddie's voice was calm. "I am not your weapon." And then, with a sound like a thunderclap, the entire ridge cracked open and swallowed the army whole. The dust took minutes to settle. When it did, the desert was silent, eerily so. A crater smoldered where the assault teams had stood. Mangled armor glinted beneath heaps of shattered rock. Whatever underground facility had been buried beneath their feet had collapsed entirely. There would be no follow-up team, no trace, no pursuit. Only ghosts. Ghost, Jenna, Drift, and Maddie stood at the edge of the ruin, wind tugging at their clothes. No one spoke for a long time. Then Maddie swayed. Ghost caught her before she fell, easing her to the ground. Blood trickled from her nose, a single line, bright against the dirt on her face. "She burned too hot," Drift murmured. "Used too much power too fast." Jenna crouched beside them. "Can she recover?" Drift hesitated. "Not here." Ghost looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" Drift glanced toward the west horizon. "There's one place left. It's deep, cold, black site from the Reagan years. It's off the books. Even Sloan wouldn't be able to find her there. But it's risky." "Everything's been risky," Ghost said. Drift nodded. "Then we go." It took them 17 hours to reach the site. A hidden rail system buried beneath an abandoned grain silo in the middle of Idaho. A train with no engine, just magnetic coils and a biometric panel that still recognized Jenna's clearance, thanks to a backdoor override Drift had hardwired years ago for fun. The train dropped them nearly 4 miles underground, below even the known sublevels, to a place called Cobalt. There was no light except what they brought with them. The walls were lined with cryo chambers, long abandoned, failed experiments in human enhancement from the Cold War era. Maddie was the culmination of that twisted science, only she hadn't failed. Drift found a chamber with stable power. She began modifying it. Jenna stood watch. Ghost paced. "She'll survive," Drift assured him. "We'll put her into stasis, long enough for her mind to recalibrate, to repair the neural damage, long enough to keep her off their grid." Ghost didn't respond. He just looked at Maddie. She lay on the stretcher, breathing shallowly, fingers twitching like she was still fighting somewhere far away. Drift placed a small data crystal into Ghost's hand. Everything she recovered, memories, conditioning programs, ghost files, the map to every project she touched. He stared at it, then nodded. "What do I do with it?" he asked. Drift's eyes were sharp. "Whatever you must. Burn it, leak it, bury it. But know this, they'll never stop unless the truth comes out." Jenna joined them, looking at the cryopod now softly glowing. "She's ready." Ghost leaned over his daughter. "Hey, Sky Dragon," he whispered. "You rest now. I'll be right here." She stirred faintly, her eyes cracking open. "Dad?" "I'm here." She tried to smile. "You still sing off-key." He chuckled, tears welling. "Wouldn't have it any other way." Her eyes fluttered shut, and the pod sealed. Cold vapor hissed around her. Suspended. Safe. For now. Ghost and Jenna stood at the edge of the chamber, the lights fading behind them. "I'll stay with her," he said, "as long as it takes." Jenna touched his shoulder. "I'll be back. And when I return, we end this. All of it." He looked at her, then at the chip in his hand. "We tell the world," he said. And behind them, the last child soldier of Project Dawn slept, dreaming, for the first time in 17 years, of stars that didn't belong to anyone, just to her. 3 weeks passed. Cobalt held its silence like a tomb. The hum of cryogenics was the only sound that echoed through the dark halls, steady, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Ghost rarely left Maddie's side. He slept on a cot beside her chamber, shaved with a broken mirror, and ate whatever Jenna's supply drops could provide. He didn't speak unless he had to. He just waited. Drift came once, briefly, to install a neuromonitoring station. "No changes in vitals," she'd said, "but synaptic recovery's begun. Her brain's re-establishing organic connections. She's healing herself." Ghost had nodded. Not speaking, just clinging to that one word. Healing. Meanwhile, Jenna worked the outside world like a scalpel. She released pieces of the data, first anonymously, then directly to trusted allies in intelligence circles. Not too much, just enough. Reports of child soldiers, black sites, enhanced brainwashing programs hidden under deep nuclear codes, no names, no direct accusations, but it was enough to stir the water, to make them panic. Sloan disappeared from official records 3 days after the first leak, but Jenna knew he wasn't gone, just hiding and watching. She sent Ghost a secure message via the underground network. "Phase 7 is coming. Be ready." He stared at the message for a long time before deleting it and returning to Maddie's side. One night, long after the lights had dimmed and the hum had faded into the back of his mind, Ghost awoke to a sharp gasp. He bolted upright. The cryochamber's lights pulsed, then hissed. Steam vented as the pod unlocked itself. "Maddie?" he breathed. The lid rose. Her fingers twitched, then gripped the edge. She sat up, eyes wild, body trembling. "Where?" she gasped. "What?" Ghost caught her before she fell. "You're safe," he whispered. "You're safe now." Her breathing slowed. Her hands clutched at his shirt like an anchor. "I saw it all," she whispered. "The labs, the tests, the other kids, the fire." He stroked her hair, tears sliding down his cheeks. "It's over." But she shook her head. "No, it isn't. Not yet." Her eyes, brighter now, clearer, locked on his. "They're still out there." Later, Jenna arrived, flanked by 2 new allies. One was a former NSA whistleblower who now lived in a van with enough tech to short-circuit a city. The other was a journalist who'd nearly died breaking the Pentagon leaks 5 years earlier. Together, they laid out the final map. Coordinates, sites, names. Project Dawn wasn't dead. It had evolved. Shifted to a new program, Project Inherit, a failsafe, one final test case. And it wasn't Maddie. It was the child she thought had died next to her, a boy, a prototype. Asset 001, her brother. Ghost stared at the screen, pulse thudding in his ears. "She had a brother?" Drift nodded. They raised them in parallel. He was more controllable, obedient. But when Maddie went dark, They locked him down. Jenna's voice was tight. They're planning to launch him as a public hero, a controlled messiah, a manufactured savior. And erase her existence in the process, Ghost said. Maddie stood slowly. Her voice was steel. Then we stopped them. Jenna looked at her. Are you sure you're ready? Maddie's eyes didn't waver. I was born ready. Ghost rose beside her. And we end this together. As the transport lifted from the desert one last time, the war they never asked for finally had a name. Not vengeance, not redemption, but truth. And it would be written not in silence, but in fire. The final facility sat buried beneath a suburban neighborhood outside Arlington, Virginia. A neighborhood built not for residents, but for cover. Identical houses, manicured lawns, and families who were really agents, technicians, and handlers. The heart of Project Inherit pulsed below it. Access was impossible from above, unless you had the right key, which Maddie did. She remembered the cadence of the door code like a lullaby. She remembered the handler's voice, the fluorescent flicker of the hallways, the taste of the water from the steel sinks. She remembered the white room where they told her he died. Asset 001, her brother. She remembered the lie. Now she stood at the edge of the neighborhood, dressed like a civilian, a hoodie pulled over her face, Ghost at her side. Last chance to change your mind, he said. She gave him a look. He nodded, didn't ask again. Drift had already fried the facility's outer surveillance grid. Jenna, posing as a federal agent, rerouted the neighborhood's entire security patrol to a fabricated gas leak 2 blocks away. The team moved in silence. Drift, Ghost, Maddie, Jenna, and the journalist Cole, who carried a satellite uplink in his backpack to stream the footage the second they retrieved the data. They reached the entry house, an old colonial with a cracked bird bath and a basement door sealed behind retinal and voice ID. Maddie stepped forward. The panel scanned her, beeped once, and unlocked. Down they went, 30 feet, then 60, then into the core of Inherit. Lights flickered to life in a corridor lined with glass rooms, each holding memories Maddie had buried. Isolation tanks, medical chairs, dried blood stains not scrubbed clean enough. And at the end of the hallway, him. He sat on a bench staring at the floor. A teenager now, 17 maybe, pale, strong, dressed in white. When he heard their footsteps, he looked up, and Maddie stopped cold, because the boy had her eyes. "Hello," he said. His voice was calm, even rehearsed. "You're late." Ghost stepped between them instinctively, but Maddie raised a hand. "No, I need to talk to him." The boy rose. "I knew you'd come," he said. "They said if you survived, you'd try to destroy everything." "I'm not here to destroy you," she said softly. "I'm here to wake you up." "I'm not asleep," he said. She stepped closer. "Yes, you are." He moved fast, too fast, striking at Ghost, who barely blocked in time. Jenna raised her weapon, but Maddie shouted, "Don't!" She stepped between them and held her arms wide. "I'm not fighting you." The boy hesitated, trembled. "I remember. A stuffed bear," he whispered. Maddie's eyes welled. "Tiberius. I held him when the lights went out. And you sang." She nodded. "Yes, every night." He staggered back, clutching his head. "They said that wasn't real. They said you were a test, a failed experiment, that I was the only one who mattered." "They lied to both of us." Behind her, alarm started to scream. "They know we're here," Drift called out. "We've got 2 minutes before lockdown." Ghost turned to Maddie. "We have to go, now." Maddie stepped forward and took her brother's hand. He didn't pull away. "Come with me," she said. "Let's finish this together." The boy looked at her, then at Ghost, then at the room, and nodded. They uploaded everything. Data, video, test results, full biometric logs. Cole sent it live across every public server in the world, every journalist, every government office, and every citizen. The truth couldn't be buried anymore. Inherit fell that day, not with explosions, but with exposure. The final weapon had chosen not to fight. He chose family, 3 weeks later, they sat on a hill outside Boulder, watching the sunset. Jenna sipped coffee. Drift was already building her next safe house in her head. Maddie and her brother lay side by side in the grass, watching the stars. "Do you think we're free now?" he asked. She didn't answer at first. Then she said, "We're together. That's close enough." Ghost stood behind them watching, arms folded. Jenna joined him. "You did it," she said. "No," he replied. She did. And somewhere far away, in a bunker that no longer mattered, the ghosts of Project Dawn faded into dust, and the sky belonged to them again. That night, the stars seemed closer. Ghost sat beside the fire pit, the flames casting warm light on the faces around him. Maddie, her brother, who now went by the name Cal, Jenna, Drift, even Cole. They shared no blood, no flag, just survival, truth, and a war they hadn't chosen but had decided to end on their own terms. Cal was quiet, always watching, like he expected a shadow to fall at any moment. Maddie understood it. The silence that came from knowing too much, too soon. The hollow spaces where a childhood should have lived. She broke it gently, tossed a small bag of marshmallows into his lap. "What's this?" he asked. "Tradition," she said. He poked at the fire with a stick. "Do we just burn them?" Ghost chuckled. "You toast them, or char them black if you're like Maddie." "I like them crispy," she said with a smile. Cal stared into the fire, then tentatively held out his marshmallow on the stick. "Why does this feel familiar?" he murmured. "Because we did it once," she said, "back before the glass rooms. I think we were 5. You burned yours and cried." He smirked faintly. "Does sound like me." Across the circle, Drift adjusted her laptop. The net's still buzzing. "Your footage went viral in 26 countries. They're calling you the girl who shut down the Shadow War." Maddie blinked. "Catchy." Jenna leaned forward. "Sloane's off the grid, but he's not gone." Ghost's face darkened. "He won't come at us through guns anymore. He'll try courts, disinfo, cleanups." Drift nodded. "Already started. They're claiming it was a rogue experiment. One facility, unregulated. Standard spin." Cole tossed a log into the fire. "But the public's not buying it, not this time. Too much video, too many files." Ghost looked at Maddie and Cal. "They'll try to make you enemies again, or icons. That's the danger." "We're not either," Maddie said. "We're just people." "For now," Jenna added. The fire cracked. The stars deepened. Then Cal asked softly, "What happens tomorrow?" Ghost answered without hesitation. "We live. No labs, no missions, no numbers tattooed into the back of their minds. Just morning, just light." And as the fire burned low and the desert wind swept gently across the ridge, Maddie closed her eyes and dreamed, not of data, not of command triggers, but of the sky, open, endless, hers. In the weeks that followed, the world shifted, but not all at once. Governments scrambled to respond to the leak. Some denied everything. Others launched investigations. Committees formed. Hearings were scheduled. But for every official who tried to bury the truth, 10 more voices rose to echo it. The footage of Maddie in the corridor, arms outstretched, standing between her brother and the guns, became a symbol, not of war, but of choice, of reclamation. People didn't see a weapon. They saw a girl who said no. Cal adapted slowly. The outside world overwhelmed him. Color, noise, freedom. For a boy raised in silence and obedience, even the feel of sunlight on skin could be disorienting. But Maddie was patient. She taught him how to live, not just survive. They planted a garden together outside their new safe house in Oregon. Tomatoes, mostly. Cal didn't understand the appeal at first, but when the first green shoots broke through the soil, his face lit up like a sunrise. "Why does it feel like magic?" he asked. "Because it's life," Maddie replied. "And no one gave it to you. You made it yourself. Drift stayed busy dismantling what remained of the surveillance grid Project Inherit, used to track its assets. One node at a time, she shut them down, buried code, inside code, until the entire system turned in on itself and collapsed. Jenna went back into the belly of Washington quietly, a ghost in her own right, whispering truths into the right ears, threatening the wrong ones. She didn't want medals, she wanted reckoning. And Ghost? He finally allowed himself to rest. One afternoon, Maddie found him sitting in the garden, eyes closed, breathing deep. "Thinking?" she asked. "Just listening," he replied. "To what?" He opened his eyes and smiled. "The sound of nothing chasing us." She sat beside him. "I still get dreams," she said. "I know. Some are good, some not." "They'll fade," he said. "Or maybe they won't. But they're just dreams. They can't hurt you anymore." She looked at him. "What if they try to come back, the people who made us what we were? Then we'll remind them what we are now." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For never giving up." He put an arm around her. Never was an option. The summer passed quietly. The story faded from headlines, as stories do. New scandals, new tragedies, new distractions. But those who paid attention remembered. They remembered the fire in the girl's eyes. They remembered the boy who walked away from his programming. They remembered the man who flew into restricted airspace, who triggered an entire squadron just so the world would ask, why? And they remembered the call sign, etched into the side of an old Phantom jet, flying where no one should have flown. Ghost, the one who came back, not to fight, not to destroy, but to find what mattered, and bring it home. Somewhere far from Oregon, in a room buried beneath 20 levels of classified clearance, Sloan sat in silence. The room was dark, save for the dim light of a single screen looping security footage that the public had never seen. Not the viral clips, not the leaks. Just one video, recovered from the ruins of Site Delta, grainy, scorched at the edges. It showed Maddie standing in the corridor of Containment Wing 6, her eyes alight, every Praetorian behind her lying motionless. Sloan rewound it, again and again. Each time he paused at the same frame, her face, half in shadow, half in light. He studied it like scripture. Behind him, a younger man cleared his throat. "Phase 7 has failed, sir. The assets have gone fully autonomous." Sloan didn't turn. "What about the others?" The man hesitated. "Most were neutralized during the collapse of Inherit. A few vanished, possibly embedded with civilian populations." Sloan finally looked up. "They're not hiding," he said. "They're choosing." "Choosing what?" Sloan smiled faintly. "To be human." The young man frowned. "What's the directive?" There was a long pause, then Sloan shut the monitor off. "We watch," he said, "and we wait." Back in Oregon, the garden flourished. Cal built a small shed with his hands, refusing help. Every nail he hammered in was one more choice he'd made for himself. Maddie painted again. Drift brought her canvases one weekend, half as a joke, but the brush felt natural in her hand, like an old friend she'd forgotten. Ghost fixed up an old motorcycle he found in a barn. Every time he kicked it to life, the engine roared with the sound of freedom. And Jenna visited often, her hair streaked with gray now, but her fire no dimmer. She brought news, updates, quiet warnings. One morning, she arrived before dawn, her face grim. "They're restructuring," she told Ghost, "rebranding the programs, this time under the guise of health tech, childhood cognitive development, friendly logos, clean websites." "Same rot," he muttered. "They'll come back," she said. "I know." Jenna looked at Maddie and Cal playing cards on the porch. "But so will we," Ghost nodded, then turned to her. "Let them rebuild," he said. "Let them whisper and scheme. Just remember." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a battered old dog tag. The letters were faded, but still clear. "Ghost." "They're not the only ones watching. That night the sky was clear again. Maddie and Cal sat beneath the stars, wrapped in blankets, the fire crackling low. "Do you think they'll try to take us again?" Cal asked. Maddie looked up at the night, then over at her father, who leaned against the porch railing, arms crossed, calm and steady. "No," she said, "they can't." "Why not?" She smiled. "Because this time, we're not alone." And above them, the stars kept their quiet vigil, no longer over soldiers, but over survivors, free. And so the seasons turned. The leaves went from green to gold, then crisp brown underfoot. Maddie loved the change, how it signaled life without chaos. It felt like time, at long last, was moving forward instead of circling the same trauma. She and Cal built habits, real ones. Mornings tending the garden. Afternoons reading, playing chess, learning how to just be. They'd never been taught how to live without orders. Now they were teaching themselves. Ghost found peace in the routine, too. He took early runs through the tree-lined trails. He chopped wood, fixed the fences, rebuilt the old shed into something sturdier. Jenna joked that he was becoming a very muscular hermit. He'd grin but never deny it. Drift came and went, always with new intel. Her network spread quietly, a spider web of whistleblowers and digital ghosts, keeping tabs on whatever new mask the enemy wore. Sloane's name faded from the world, but none of them were naive. The game wasn't over. It had simply changed arenas. One winter night, snow blanketed the hills in silence. Inside the house, Maddie sat by the fire, sketching. Her hand moved across the paper with purpose. She'd stopped drawing nightmares. Now she drew the people around her, Ghost splitting firewood, Cal staring at the stars, Jenna, coat flapping, storming through the front door like she still ran a battalion. She'd even drawn Drift once, feet on the desk, 5 laptops open, mouth full of nachos. Each face reminded her she wasn't a file, she wasn't a project, and she was Maddie Hale, alive, healing, free. She felt him before she heard him. Cal stepped into the room, wrapped in a blanket, barefoot. "You're still up?" "Couldn't sleep." He sat beside her, watching the flames. "Me neither." She offered him a corner of her blanket. He accepted. For a moment, they just watched the fire dance. Then he said, "I had a dream about the chair." She nodded. "Me too." "You think they'll come back for us?" She thought for a moment, and then said, "No, they'll come back for something. Power, control, maybe the next kids, but not us. Not anymore." "You're sure?" She reached over and squeezed his hand. "I'm not scared of them now. That's enough." He looked at her. "I'm glad I have you." She smiled. "You always did." Ghost watched from the hallway, silent. He'd meant to check on them, to make sure they were sleeping. Instead, he stood in the shadows and listened. And for the first time in years, his chest didn't feel like a steel cage. It felt warm, whole. He turned and walked away, his boots silent on the wood floor. Outside, snowflakes drifted down like memories, soft, quiet, no longer painful. The ghosts were finally resting, and the world, for the first time in a long time, was theirs to dream in. Spring came like a promise. The frozen ground softened. Buds pushed through the thawed soil. Maddie knelt in the garden one morning, brushing her fingers over the first bloom, a single crocus, purple and defiant, breaking through the dirt like it had something to prove. She smiled. Cal watched from the porch, scribbling in a journal Drift had given him. It was filled with lists, things he wanted to learn, places he wanted to go, songs he liked, names he was considering. He wasn't ready to settle on just one yet. Maddie had told him that was okay. After all, names were about choice. Drift rolled up that day in a mud-streaked SUV, music blasting something bass-heavy and full of chaos. Ghost opened the front door before she knocked. "Subtle as always," he muttered. "I try," she grinned, stepping past him. "Got an update, not urgent, but you'll want to see it." They gathered around the table, coffee mugs in hand. Maddie leaned over Drift's shoulder as she pulled up a map on her laptop. "New site?" Jenna asked. Drift nodded. "Yeah, outside Munich. It's under a think tank now, public-facing. They say it's neuroscience research for prosthetics, but it's Dawn Tech. I recognize the framework." Ghost's jaw tightened. "Is Sloan involved?" "Not directly, but his fingerprints are on it. Someone's keeping the engine running." Jenna sat back. "So they're building again." "They never stopped," Maddie said. Everyone looked at her. She didn't sound afraid, just ready. Cal closed his journal. "So what do we do?" Drift smirked. "That's the best part, huh? We don't need to do anything yet. We've exposed enough that people are watching. They'll hesitate." "But not forever," Jenna said. "We know how this game plays." Ghost nodded. "Then we stay ready." Maddie met his eyes. "No," she said quietly. "We stay alive. That's the win." No one argued. That evening, they lit a fire out back. No urgency, no mission, just warmth and sky and stars. Cal played a song on the old guitar Ghost had restored. Maddie sang along, voice low but steady. Ghost leaned against the porch railing, watching them. Jenna sipped from a thermos beside him. "You ever think we'd get here?" she asked. He shook his head slowly. "Not once." She smiled. "I did." Drift walked out, hands full of marshmallows. "Tradition, right?" Cal laughed. "Only if I get to burn mine this time." They sat close, flames dancing in their eyes, the night filled with smoke and soft laughter. And somewhere in the dark, far from the firelight, the old ghosts stirred one last time. Not in anger, not in fear, but in peace, because they were no longer needed. Not here, not anymore. The next morning, a gentle rain tapped against the roof like the start of a new song. Maddie sat by the window with a blanket draped over her shoulders, watching droplets race down the glass. Cal joined her with 2 mugs of cocoa, his hair still tousled from sleep. "Dream anything?" he asked, handing her one. She nodded. "Nothing bad." "Me neither," he said. They clinked mugs in silent celebration. Outside, Ghost repaired a section of the fence that the winter winds had bent. He worked slowly, methodically, as if each nail sealed something deeper into place, something permanent. Every strike of the hammer was a quiet promise. Jenna read the paper by the fireplace, eyes darting over a front-page article about whistleblowers testifying before the World Court. She smiled. A small, private victory. Drift walked in with mud-caked boots and a hard drive wrapped in a rag. "New leak," she said, handing it to Jenna. Another piece of the puzzle. Jenna raised a brow. "Anyone still listening?" Drift grinned, more than ever. They stored the drive in a steel lockbox beneath the floorboards, alongside others. Not out of fear, but for safekeeping. A living archive, proof that what happened had happened, and wouldn't be erased again. That night, Cal and Maddie sat under the stars. No fire, just sky. He pointed upward. "That one's Vega." She squinted. "You sure?" He laughed. "I read one book." They sat in silence, the kind that didn't need to be filled. Then he asked, "Do you think we're the only ones?" She looked at him. "You mean like us?" He nodded. "I hope not," she said, "because that means others made it too." "Do you think we'll find them?" She reached for his hand. "No," she said, "they'll find us." And above them, Vega flickered, steady and bright. Not a signal, not a warning, just light. And down on Earth, 2 kids once built for war sat beneath it, wrapped in warmth, free to dream of anything, everything. The rest of the world kept turning. But here, at the edge of one long buried story, a new one quietly began.